Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be talking about Luminosity Makes Moves Miami, which was an S tier that took place this weekend in, you probably guessed it, Miami. And this was a Steve banned event, so that is something to note. And for our top 16 finishers, you're going to have Jahzzo, Zomba, Loaf, and Gok in my Rari finishing in 13th. Shattuck, Skeleton, Mia, and Syrup in 9th. In 7th place, you're going to have Lima and Riddles. 5th place is Maister and Raf. 4th place was mkleo. 3rd place was Light. 2nd place was Sonix. And winning the entire thing was Tweek. So first things first, we got to talk about our top 8 seeds that did not get into the top 8. There's going to be 3 of them, Zomba, Mia, and Shattuck. Starting off with Zomba. He's going to pick up a win on Goblin in the winner side before falling to Skeleton, where then he beats Beast Mode Paul, and then has the misfortune of running into Mia. Now, he did go a couple of characters in this set, namely Dark Pit, Lucina, and of course, Rob. But the Dark Pit was the only one that was able to find success taking that game 1. So maybe in the future, we could see Dark Pit be a counter pick against Game & Watch. Rob is just such a difficult matchup for that character that it definitely makes sense that Zomba would be trying other characters. I wouldn't have guessed Dark Pit to be the one that was successful. I would have guessed Lucina, but hey, whatever works is all that matters at the end of the day. And let's talk about that aforementioned Mia. He's going to get a win on Chunky Kong in the winner side before falling to Wrath in a very competitive Game 5 set. He's going to get his revenge on raflow from Genesis, so he's got to be feeling pretty good about that one. Gets a win on Zomba and then falls to Light. And even though matchup-wise, Light is a really good draw for Mia, both Game Watch and Steve are really good into Fox. Player-wise, Fox, or rather Light, just has a super good record against Mia. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about Light. But honestly, not the worst tournament for Mia, even though, yeah, it is unfortunate that he didn't play super well. I really think that raflow win is going to be a massive just mental W for him. Palutena, I do think, is a character that does really well against Game & Watch, and Mia in the past has dropped sets to Palutena players, one of them being Raflow, so for him to finally get his chance at a run back and to win it as well is going to be feeling pretty good for Mia there. And the final top 8 seed that does not get into top 8 is going to be Shattuck, and this one's fairly cut and dry. He gets wins on Epic, Gabriel, and Syrup, but then runs into Tweek in the winner side, which is like Shattuck's only demon at this point. Every other player in the world Shattuck has at least taken a set off of if he's played against them multiple times, but Tweek is the last bastion of players that he is just still struggling against. And while I think he will beat him eventually, it wasn't this tournament. 3-0 in Tweek's favor. And then in the loser side, he runs into Maister, who is just playing really, really good at this event and ends up taking that one in a Game 5. So for Shattuck and Mia, it's not the end of the world for them. They don't take any bad losses at this event. You know, they're only losing to really, really good players. Same thing for Zomba as well, but obviously the placements and the wins aren't as much as you would expect. Now we got to talk about the low-tier hero of the event, which coincidentally was also potentially the loser's run of the event, and that's going to be coming from Gok in my Rari, who I'm just going to be referring to as Gimmer from now on, no associations there. And they're going to end up losing their round 2 pools to Viri, the Rob player, and get wins on ROV, Infernape, and Sorjay to make it out to the top 64. And once in the top 64, they keep that streak going with wins on Mysterica, Odyssey, Seal, as well as Mudace most impactfully before losing to Meister for 13th place. But this is an amazing run from Gimmer, obviously. It's not rare that, or it's not common rather, that you see Duck Hunt have success in the current meta, but even less so in a way like this where they make a crazy losers run beating a bunch of super talented players back to back to back. That's just not really what Duck Hunt is good for. When I think of Duck Hunt as a character, I think, okay, he's got a couple really good strengths. The Can's really good, the Frisbee's really good, and then he's got a lot of really bad weaknesses. And against a character like Peach, for example, I do think that Duck Hunt would be able to exploit that, and it makes sense that they were able to get that massive upset over Mudace. And also just shout outs to getting that win. Even if it is maybe slightly favorable for Duck Hunt compared to other characters that Duck Hunt would fight, you are still beating Mudace at the end of the day. So amazing run from Gok in my Rari or Gimmer here to get 13th place with Duck Hunt. It's very rare that you see this character have success in the meta, and this is one of the best runs we've seen from an NA Duck Hunt player, especially in maybe ever. And before I get comments about it, yes, I'm aware that there are other good Duck Hunt players in NA. It's just been a while since they popped off at a tournament as big as this. Now we got to talk about the best losers runs of the tournament, at least of the ones that didn't get into top 8, and we already talked about Gok in my Rari, but you're also going to have Beast Mode Paul, Beastly, and Loaf. And for Beast Mode Paul and Beastly, they only end up winning 4 sets in a row, but they were just able to get some pretty nice wins in those sets. For Beast Mode Paul, he's going to end up losing to Sonito, and then he beats Stars, Taveras, WebJB, and Spritzy before falling to Zomba, which is honestly just pretty unlucky to get Zomba in your bracket path. But we saw Beast Mode Paul try out Corrin in that matchup, though it does not end up working out. I believe that's the first time we've ever seen his Corrin come out at a super high level tournament like this, so it's good to see that he is still experimenting with characters for Raw, because that just is an issue for Hero that he is going to need to solve. That's a very prevalent character in the meta. You're also going to have Beastly winning 4 sets in a row. He ends up losing a Game 5 set to Chunky Kong, but then beats Champagne, and then gets this really, really nice streak of players in Beast, Deathspade, and Peanut, all in a row before losing to Syrup. So bunch of solid names on Beastly's list right there. And the final one is going to be Lofu. Actually ends up winning 5 sets in a row, loses to Base Mage, but then beats Edmund, Luke Cheeto, Omega, Epic Gabriel, and Border Hopper before falling to Riddles in a very competitive Game 5 set that absolutely could have gone into his favor. So these weren't the longest losers run in terms of just, length, but they were able to get some super solid wins along the way. And I just thought all 3 of these players were playing exceptionally. So I wanted to highlight them. The next 2 players I didn't really have a segment for, so I'm just going to talk about them together, and that is Skeleton and Raflow. Starting off with Raflow, who is randomly our only EU invader at this event, but I'm very happy that he came down because he's just so much fun to watch. He's going to get a win on Zai or Z before falling to Mudace in a Game 5 set that absolutely could have gone into his favor, but then he has 2 more Game 5 sets in losers. The first one versus Kobe, the second one versus Mars, which is one of the best sets of the entire tournament. It was off stream, but still absolute banger on that hand cam. And then he has the misfortune of running into Mia, and even though Palatino is good against Game Watch, he's one of their only encounter. It is still Mia at the end of the day, and he does fall to that one in a Game 4. But I thought Raflow played pretty good at this event, ends up placing his seed, so not an over or under performance. But if we see him again in NA, and I hope that we get to see him again in NA soon, I would expect him to honestly perform better. He had some really competitive sets, specifically that one versus Beauty, that if he does end up winning that one, it could have been an entirely different tournament for him. So I thought Raflow played pretty good. Could he have placed higher? Yeah, but he should be pretty happy with his placements. No bad losses, good wins as well. And speaking of good wins and no bad losses, you're going to have Skeleton finishing in 9th place. And this is probably going to be his best run to date, especially at the major level, because he's able to get 2 massive wins on Cola and Zomba, as well as a really nice win on Anarchy before falling to Wrath, which is just definitely a tough draw as a Kazuya player, Sonic, and then Riddles in the loser side. And that's arguably a harder draw. Like, yeah, it's hard to beat in an unwinnable matchup, but it's harder to beat the guy that has all the tools that you have, but it's just like better at the game. But Skeleton, really, really impressed by his play at this event to get all the way to 9th place in the current meta with Kazuya. I think is difficult. I don't think Kazuya is amazing in the current meta, even though he kills you in 1 hit. Every character kills you in 1 hit, and they all have good neutrals, unlike Kazuya. But Skeleton managed to make it work at this event, played extremely well, and he should be really, really happy with that solo. And we have arrived at the top 8. So if there's any player that are left out and you're curious about their run, just leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to tell you how they did, and sub while you're down there. But starting off with our 7th place finishers of Riddles and Lima, specifically starting off with Riddles. He's going to get upset earlier, as I mentioned, by jahzzo, and in the loser side of the bracket, he gets wins over Chase, Cola, Luis, Loaf, and Skeleton. Now, the only upset that he performed in the loser side is going to be that nice win over Cola, which does end up going to Game 5, and that's also going to be one of the few sets that you see the Kazuya come out at this event for Riddles. I would say at this point, Riddles is definitely a Terry main, because you saw the Kazuya come out versus Kaden, the Ridley player, though it was only in a losing effect in Game 3. You saw it come out versus Cola in, I believe it was Game 1, also in a losing effect. It should also be noted that you had both Aegis and Roy getting success in Cola for that set versus Riddles, so his Aegis doing pretty good. But back to the topic at hand, and then the set that you actually had Kazuya getting success is going to be versus Skeleton, which was just the Kazuya data that you have Riddles winning. And the final time you see it is in top 8 versus Maister. Ends up losing the first 2 games versus Game & Watch. You have him switching to Terry to actually take that 3rd game, but still loses the set, and that is a tough draw for Riddles. I think Maister does not only good versus FGC characters, but Game & Watch also just does really well against FGC characters. But this is a super solid run from Riddles. His second half of the year has honestly been phenomenal, especially in contrast to his first half of the year. Aside from a small slip up at Supernova, he's been one of the best players in NA. And speaking of one of the best players in NA, Lima keeps that streak of top tier placements going from the Cirque weekend with a top 8 at this event. He's going to get wins over Choco Taco, WebJP, as well as Maister in a Game 5 set to get to that top 8 qualifier, where he has the misfortune of running into sonix. Manages to take a game there, but I definitely think that is a tough draw for Bayonetta and really anyone in the world is sonix at the end of the day. Beats Syrup to get into that top 8 through the loser side, and once in top 8 has once again the misfortune of running into Light. Even though he does beat Light in the loser side of Cirque, I still think that's not a great draw for Bayonetta. I would favor Fox versus Bayo, and I would also just favor Light versus Bayo because of how aggressive he is and how overwhelming he is, and ultimately the results would agree with me this time around. But Lima has been killing it this year, one of the best players in the entire world, but easily a top 10 player in America for this season. On to our 5th place finishers, those being Wrath and Maister. Starting off with Maister, he's going to get wins on Vivid and Amir before falling to Lima, and then he gets wins on Anarchy, Gawk and Marari, and Shadow to get into the top 8 to the loser side. Once in top 8, he beats Riddles and then has the misfortune of running into mkleo, which is maybe the worst person on the entire planet that you could get from Maister, and that's not even an exaggeration. Like, Sonix and Spargo could potentially be a little bit worse, but Leo is just generally such an awful draw for Maister. But despite that, 5th place is still a very solid finishing for him. He's the highest place in Game Watch of the event, so you'll definitely take that one. And the win over Shattuck is definitely his most impressive. It's his only upset of the event, but also, I just think that's a really hard win to secure considering how good Shattuck is and how difficult that matchup is, but Maister has a really good record versus Shattuck. I believe it's 6-2, 7-2 like that in his favor overall. But in 2024, you had Shattuck fighting back. He took the first 2 sets, but then you have Maister fighting back and taking their most recent 2 sets. And I'm very excited to see what happens the next time that these guys play, because it could just go into Shattuck's favor. You know, maybe they just trade 2 sets back and forth. Maybe Shattuck will never beat Maister again. Those are the only 2 that he's ever going to get. Now, I doubt that's the case, but Maister is really good against Korn. Like, one of the best players in the world against Korn. He clearly understands how to exploit that character in her disadvantage and actually utilize her bad mobility. So big props to Maister for getting that upset over Shattuck. Even though historically, record-wise, it's a pretty good matchup for him, I still think it's a really hard matchup to win. And Raph is going to be finishing 5th place alongside him with the most impressive win of the event. And he's also going to get wins over Chugs, Odyssey, Skeleton. Feel good about those, of course. But mainly what we care about for Raph is his Game 5 win over Mia, which is like obviously very impressive, even if Sonic does very well against Game Watch. Mia has a lot of experience versus the top Sonic players in the world. He's very clearly ready for this matchup, but he wasn't prepared enough for Raph this time around. So just huge props to Raph. I feel like I cannot hammer that point home enough. To be able to get a win of this caliber is just so impressive. And once in the top 8, he does get a little bit unlucky running into both Tweek and Light, which are like 2 of the best players in the world against Sonic, but still, amazing placement from Raph. This is probably going to be his best offline result ever at this point, and even including his really early run at Frostbite 2020. So to finally be able to trump that with an even better result, getting that nice win over Mia, has got to feel amazing for him. Editing Fruit Block, I really quickly just wanted to point out that Raph made an insane comeback on Game 5 against Mia. In just a second, I'm going to say that Tweek made the greatest ever comeback in Smash Ultimate, and I still stand by that, but Raph also is in contention for that now because of this game. Like, it is absurd what he pulled off in this Game 5. In 4th place, you have Leo. 3rd place, Light, starting off with Leo, who came pretty close to making my predictions of him winning this event true, but he just falls short at the finish line there. He's going to get wins on Veery, Guy, Border Hopper, and an upset over Light to get top 8 through the winner's side. Once in top 8, he runs into Sonix, and he actually ends up trying out Meta Knight in the first 3 games of that set, taking the first one with Meta Knight, though he does end up losing the next 2, and in Game 4, he does switch back to the Joker, though it is ultimately futile. Once he's in the loser side of the bracket, he gets that win over Maister, like I mentioned, and then loses his run back to Light. But I really like that Leo tried Meta Knight against Sonic. I know that he doesn't love Joker Sonic. I personally think that matchup isn't that bad for Joker, but Meta Knight does pretty good into Sonic in my opinion. I could see that matchup being even, so it makes sense for mkleo to at least try it out considering how good his Meta Knight is. And even though it doesn't end up panning out, he was still looked pretty good, and in their next set, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he tried the Meta Knight again with greater success. And Leo's been on such an upward trend recently, which is not something that I thought I would say at the end of 2023, the start of 2024. I thought we'd see a continuous fallout from him, but it has been the exact opposite. He's just been getting better and better at every single event that we've seen, and I'm honestly really excited to see what the future holds for Leo and if he is able to come close to reclaiming that #1 spot, because to be honest, I think he has a possibility of doing it. It's a hard possibility, but at least there is a chance. I wouldn't have said that last year. And now let's talk about our 3rd place finisher in Light, who's going to get wins on Spritzy, Atomic, and Luis before getting upset by mkleo. But to get into top 8, he pulls off an upset himself over Mia to not let Mia into top 8. So that's a couple times now that Mia's missed top 8 at an NA event. Maybe NA's getting a little bit better. Who knows? I actually do think NA's like the best they've been in quite some time, but that's a discussion for another time. Light is one of the reasons that NA's the best they've been in quite some time, and he continues his run in the top 8, beating Lima, Wrath, and mkleo before losing to Sonix in a Game 5 set. It feels like Sonic's got Light's number, but just for now, I don't think that this is going to be a permanent thing. And it's not like he actually has Light's number. You have Light beating him recently. I believe it was at the Luminosity Invitational 2 where Light was able to get a win. So it's not like Sonix has just been walloping Light in their recent encounters, but especially in contrast to their early encounters where Light was just winning everything, it's a lot more competitive from Sonix in those more recent sets. He's clearly made a lot of adaptations to both Fox and Light as a player, and Light's going to have to make those exact same adaptations to Sonix if he wants to win their next encounter. And to be honest, I definitely think he can pull it off. And we have our grand finalists, Sonix in second and Tweek in first, starting off with Sonix. And you thought the second place streak was broken, but oh no, we're just getting started on this thing. He's going to get wins over Edmund, Beast, Base Mage, Mutace, and Lima to get into top 8. Once in the top 8, he gets that win over mkleo, and then in the winners finals, he loses a game 5 set to Tweek, which I'll talk about in just a second. Wins a game 5 set over Light to get back into grand finals, where he resets the bracket versus Tweek, beating him in a game 4, but then loses himself a game 4 for second place. But really solid recovery from Sonix after that underperformance at the Luminosity Invitational. That can definitely take a hit on your mental. You have a perfect season all the way right till the end, and then you get a last place at an Invitational like that. That's definitely got to suck, but Sonix did not let that slow him down. He was not discouraged. Immediate bounce back to the performances that we're used to seeing from him, and still hasn't got that major win in 2024, but I'm pretty confident that he is going to get the major win just because of how good he is, but we're running out of majors at this point. He doesn't have a lot of time left, so it's really a race against the clock, but I think that Sonix is still going to be able to beat it. And speaking of beating, Tweek beat everyone at this event. He's going to get wins on Firefly, Dominator, Jahzzo, and Shadow to get into top 8, and then once in the top 8, he had to play only Sonic. He played against Wrath, ends up winning that one 3-0, plays against Sonix in the grand finals, or the winners finals, I should say, wins that one game 5, and then game 5 specifically, I think it was in game 5, he has the craziest comeback that has ever been made in Smash Ultimate, and that is not an exaggeration. I can almost guarantee you it's on the screen right now. This is ludicrous, like absolute insanity that he was able to pull this one off, and thank goodness for him that he does pull it off, because Sonix ends up resetting him in that first bracket of grand finals, but he manages to stop him in the second one. And for the first time since, I think it was like Ultimate Summit 3, a tweet said, Tweek actually wins an event with a kill screen. It's not just him weakly hitting his opponent off stage or the SD. He actually gets the super strong hit to win the major event. And obviously for Tweek, you've got to be feeling really happy about this one. That's going to be his third major win of the year. And they're all at Max Ketchum run events as well, which is really funny. First he wins LMBM, then he's going to win Gommel. Now he wins LMM. Just whatever Max is putting in the water at these events is giving Tweek that extra buff that he needs to take it home. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The sport has been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.